Welcome back to Breaking New Ground, the show that's dedicated to the importance of having a roof over your head, a place you can call home. You'll have seen in the insert that our past, and apartheid in particular, shaped our lives and shapes the places we live in. That might be in the past though, but how does that legacy impact on us today? Is it by accident, for instance, that it's almost always windy in Langa and generally never so in Camps Bay? Langa has a tradition of discussion, debate, and democracy that started long before 1994. Many political fights were resolved here. But thankfully, the back rooms of hostels and shacks where this was done have made way to community centers like this, where we've come to discuss apartheid spatial planning and how it impacts on us ordinary citizens today. With me are, from the right, Professor Dan Smith, who is the advisor to the National Ministry of Housing. We have Olivia van Rooyen from Guyasa, which is an NGO that specializes in housing microfinance. We have Umamu Nwete, whose housing story I'm sure is an inspiration to many, and her daughter Zolega. Welcome. We also have Shanaz Majid, who heads the Department of Local Government and Housing in the Western Cape. Welcome. Let me start with you, Professor Smith. On the basics, what is spatial planning?
What spatial planning has to do with is, particularly in bigger towns and cities, it becomes necessary to organize the way in which we actually go about dealing with the process of living our lives. So, for example, in our towns and cities, as they grow and as people come in, usually to get work, you have people have got to go to work, people have to live somewhere, people have got to be able to get between where they live and where they work. And as places become bigger, so it becomes necessary to actually have a plan.
Excellent. Now, there is such a thing as apartheid spatial planning. I mean, that's a general way of planning space for people. But what was unique about apartheid spatial planning?
After 1948, the then Nationalist Party went out of its way to actually organize the way we live our lives in a way which was structured around the ideology of apartheid. What you had is a situation where most black people were located at large distances from the center of the city. And in fact, this idea of trying to create spaces where people could live and go back to work and back to their residential places became an excuse to allow people, or to allow the government of the time, to take people away from where they were currently living. So you would have some people, so District 6 in Cape Town would be a good example. Cato Manor in Durban would be another good example.
Sophia Town in Johannesburg.
Sophia Town in Johannesburg. Now these were people that were then living in a slice of the cake which didn't fit the plan. So they were then moved from where they were and relocated.
Okay. Now, Shanaz, maybe from a government perspective, you can give us an idea of how this impacts on housing plans, if you like. If you have apartheid spatial planning and you're now having to have normal spatial planning.
If you look the way the city is designed, the way where the rail tracks are, it divides people very distinctly. It's about who lives closest to the city center, as Professor Smith have mentioned. And our job is to undo that systematically. It's going to take time. It's going to take significant resources. But we have serious and a formidable policy position to help shift that. The main focus was around let's build as many houses for as many people in need as possible, and that's a good thing. That's what every government must do. However, it's where we've built those houses. That's the main limitation. And at times also in our speed with reaching the greatest number of poor people, there has been poor management of the quality of houses, where some contractors have not done the best job possible. So now we are saying, going forward, it's important for government to ensure that we go for both quantity and quality. We cannot compromise one or the other, because our housing demand and the housing shortage is still formidable to keep pace with our urbanization and our level of growth and the backlog in terms of need that need to be positively responded to.
Okay, which will bring a lot of the disenfranchised or previously disenfranchised closer to the city,
Absolutely.
closer to the economic sectors and all of this stuff.
Indeed.
Olivia, how does an organization like yours, Guyasa, the NGO, fit into this picture of trying to provide housing?
The Guyasa Fund is a housing microfinance organization that works with communities, help people to form savings groups, so people save within groups, and then people take small and micro loans to add to their subsidy, their savings, and then their loan to build a bigger house. So typically, through the subsidy system, before people lived in a 23 square meter or 30 square meter house. Through the subsidy systems, our clients would, through their savings and loan, build a bigger house and live in a 60 square meter house. And no matter where people live, people must have the opportunity to, on an ongoing basis, invest in their housing and in their living conditions, so as to, for people to invest themselves in where they are, and so as to improve the conditions under which people are living.
Mamwet, now your story I find quite inspirational. How do you feel?
Ndisithanda kakhulu ngoba ke ugovernment at least usinikile ezazindlu zincinci kodwa xa ke ngoku uye wafumana imali ukwazi ke ngoku ukuyasa kuncede senze ne-saving ukwazi ke ngoku uba at least uzenzele indlu enkulu. Ndiyavuya kakhulu yiloo nto.
But now you get to a housing space. What do you think is the most positive impact of that?
I think it's a very positive impact because living in a shack, it's quite, you don't feel comfortable because the shack can burn anytime. Can't even concentrate properly, whatever you do in a shack. It's like, it doesn't give you time to relax as well.
It's time for a quick ad break. We will wrap up when we return. Stay with us. When we return, we'll show you how Manwete was able to build her dream home and help her community at the same time. In 2000, Manwete used her own savings, combined with a loan from the Guyasa Fund, a building microfinance organization, to extend her home and turn it into a double-story house. She ran out of money and received funds from the Department of Housing to finish it. In 2004, she converted part of the house into a creche for her community and now earns valuable income from it.
The time I come here, I bought this plot with 800 grand. I'm staying about 4 years in that plot. And the council houses, the government just built the council houses. After that council houses, my daughter, we just prepared, we must make the house bigger. And so, yes, I find he just give me the money and the saving as well. After all these years, I've been struggling. And I've got a beautiful house now. It's not that for me and my daughter. I'm just helping the other people, like the community, the mothers, they just bring the daughter every day. I just help them. And I'm working about 3 people. They're helping me.
Her 4-room government house has become an asset to her and her family, one that will benefit them for generations to come. Zolega, I mean, we've heard your mother's story, amazing. She's where she is now. But how, if in any way it has this impacted on the future for you?
Okay, what I'll do is we've tried, because it was both of us, trying to build ourselves a nice place to stay in, spacious. For me, yes, I'd stay in the house until I get married, probably. Then from there, obviously, I would have to move to my own space, okay? Meaning that probably the suburbs, okay? But not forgetting where I come from, because that will be my home, and for my mother, and for whoever else is living there or working there in the meantime. So I think that was a start for us, and I will never forget that, because we come from nothing to something, which is very nice, and all of that we trust in God as well. Through hardships as well, I might say. It was very tough, but we managed to succeed.
So now you can contribute back in a way.
Yes.
One of the things that they would say, Shanaz, around the problems going forward, right? Is that, you know, the government, the NGOs, they have to do something. 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 They have to do is you might want to bring people to the center, but the land costs too much. You might want to do this. You can't move the railway tracks. They still divide people, but to move that infrastructure is a problem. Way forward, what are you guys looking to do? How do you go over those boulders, if you like?
We are busy for the past 4 years with some very exciting initiatives. In the last 18 months, we have mobilized with the banks, with the private sector, just under R500 million worth of private investment in partnership with government using our state-owned land. We are using unused buildings or buildings that's no longer used for the same purpose it originally was planned. For example, old buildings from the Department of Health, old facilities in Woodstock, in Rosebank, along is part of the entrance into the CPD, and transforming that for social housing, making apartments, much more affordable, looking at cross-subsidization of that. We are also taking a bold new action around buying up expensive land within strategic places. We are also doing land swaps as part of the range of innovations that we want to bring to how we use state land. Also, having now rationalized what provincial government administer, what land national government administer, and what land municipalities have available, because in the recent past, we haven't had a good handle on knowing exactly which pieces of land we'd want to strategically deploy. We have now successfully, as a provincial government, put a stop to the tendency that have happened over this past decade of municipalities wanting to build golf courses, right, and using a prime property that's not serving the best interests of government's policy agenda.
With all its environmental impacts that are not that positive.
And being a water scarce, region that we are in.
But let me hold you. You're advising national government. How much of this is being replicated across the 9 provinces? Is this like a...
on the one hand, we're saying we've got a challenge, and that is we've got to provide housing for people. On the other hand, we've actually now got to go that extra step. We've got to provide housing for people in environments which help to enhance their lives. It's no good being stuck out in the edge of nowhere. You may have a house, but in fact, it costs you your whole month's salary to get anywhere.
To get the whole month's salary?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so we have to think, we've got to go that extra step. We can't. We're delivering lots of houses, but we're actually reproducing the kind of structure that we've had in our cities.
You talk about working within the community. One of the things that I've always asked myself is, when shack dwellers move into a shack area, is it normally the most convenient for them to access the facilities they need to live? For instance, when you help them build where they are you actually helping them build in the best possible place for that?
I think that most of our work is within the RDP, post-RDP construction environment. So yes, we are helping people improve where they are, but our philosophy is also partially that on the one hand, the policy shift to look at better located pieces of land is fairly recent, but the reality is we've got 2.4 million units in not so desirable locations, and the question is, what are we going to do about adding value where people are already?
Okay.
Obviously, it's much easier adding value in an environment where the piece of land was in a better location in the first place, and so on. But Delft exists, so what are we going to do about making Delft a better place? Khayelitsha exists, what are we going to do about making Khayelitsha a better place? And so that challenge still remains. We can take the lessons from the past out now and do things better into the future, but with what we've got, how do we improve that?
Professor Smith, thanks for coming through.
Thanks.
Olivia, Mamweta.
Thank you.
Shanaz, thanks for coming through to the show. Spatial planning from the apartheid era did create some major problems in terms of us being able to meet our housing demands. But there are some amazing stories out there, very inspirational. Do write to us and share them if you want to. And don't forget to tune in again next week when we look at how cities are coping with the huge numbers of people leaving the rural areas for a better life. I'm Eric Mieni, and this has been Breaking New Ground.
Oh,